This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
And every child is beautiful before God and is dear to Him for their own sake. And the truest measure of any society is how it treats those who are most vulnerable.
A special day here on the Palin Update. We're doing something a little different. We're asking for your help. Eddie Burke, longtime radio host in Alaska, is here to talk about his grandson Noah, who's battling for his life right now. We'll tell you how you can help Noah and his family directly and get his grandfather's take on the Palins. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve, Dan Bongino in for Sarah Steelman today. First, we are joined by longtime radio host Eddie Burke in Alaska, who is fighting right now to help his little grandson, who is desperately in need. Eddie, thanks for being here on the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
Now, Eddie, let's talk about your grandson, Noah. How old is he? And tell us about his struggle with LCH, which I'm sure most listeners don't know much about.
Yeah, well, Noah is he's my 7-month-old grandson. We have 5 grandchildren, and Noah is the youngest of all of them. And he is 7 months, and, you know, my daughter is just such just a beautiful mom and everything. And her and her husband, Brown, they take such great care of him. And, you know, they noticed that he had a little rash at first, and maybe it was like eczema or something. And they took him into the doc, and the doc said, well, you know, maybe it's a little eczema. Not to worry, you know. Then they had a little, they call it cradle cap or something like that, and had a little, like, you know, flaky skin on the scalp, and the doc said, well, you know, that's not abnormal. A lot of children, babies, infants have those, and so there's a couple different little things, and then this little bump started on the back of his scalp, in the lower portion, and so she brought him in for that. And it maybe looked like a little mosquito bite at first. And, well, if it gets bigger, you know, bring it back and we'll take a look at it. So, well, it did get bigger. And they brought him in for an MRI. And, of course, the MRI determined that there was a tumor and it was malignant. And so they've determined that this disease, LCH, and people can go to a good website called histio.org. That's HISTIO, histio.org, and learn more about this. It's not a cancer. It's similar to like lymphoma, where essentially these good cells that normally fight infections, unfortunately they accumulate, in Noah's case, too quickly. And when they accumulate too quickly and too many of them, they turn into tumors. And then the tumor currently right now is pushing up against his brain. And it's kind of like a balloon. If you put your fist against the balloon, you'll push the balloon in. So, and then there's possibly one more that they're looking at. So even though it's not cancer, it's technically a disease, it is treated very, very similar to cancer, and the outcome is unfortunately very, very similar to cancer. So they treat it with chemo and radiation and some other things, and it's just so difficult right now to know that you have a 7-month-old grandson, and, you know, as a grandfather, there's just nothing you can do. You can't call a friend. You can't make a deal. You can't. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't go beat somebody up. You can't do anything. It's just absolutely helpless, and it's a sad day in our family because this disease only touches, listen to this now, only touches 3 or 4 in a million.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And it really, we've heard this before. We all say it. Oh, you know, I heard about you hear about other people having these problems. You hear about the person down the street or in the other state, or you're watching the news or you're listening to the radio as people are right now, and they're going, oh, yeah, I heard about that. Did you hear about the boy here or there? and then it happens to you, and it's like the death of an airplane crash or some other tragedy, and it's so surreal that it's actually happening in our family, and we're dealing with it because sometimes it doesn't seem real, but unfortunately, it's very real, very real.
Well, we've certainly noticed people rally around when it's time to help, and especially when kids are involved. How can listeners help Noah?
Well, unfortunately, my grandson, his mom and dad, my daughter Erica, and Brown works for the Anchorage School District, so they have good insurance. But the other side of it is that Erica can no longer work, and she's at the hospital currently right now. Noah is going through. You got to think, a 7-month-old baby, and they're drilling into his bone marrow, and they're taking out bone marrow from his hips, and they're doing these skeleton scans, and anyway, she's at the hospital with him all the time, so she can no longer work, and of course their income has been cut in half. And then there's just a plethora of other expenses that go along with her being there and not being able to work and all. And so we set up a fundraising account, and it's called Prayers for Noah, but the website is GoFundMe, GoFundMe.org, GoFundMe.org, and you just search Prayers for Noah, and you can go on my Facebook too. I'm Eddie Burke, and you can find me in. Of course, I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and people can find me there on Facebook. But the website they can go to is GoFundMe, GoFundMe.org, and they can leave a $5 donation or $500 donation. It doesn't, whatever people feel comfortable with. And it just really helps because this is going to be a long, long struggle with them, and it's going to be an expensive one, and we're hoping that our family and friends around here in the States have really rallied to help us out. And when you're a father, here's the thing: you're a grandfather. I can't do anything, and as a father, you want to be, because your daughter or your you want to be able to do something. You want to be able to fix it. And the thing is I can't fix it. I just can't fix it. So the only thing is I can say, listen, I told my daughter, I said, you're not going to have to worry about the money. You're not going to have to worry about your rent. You're not going to have to worry about these things. I'll figure out a way to get these things done for you. The only thing I want you to do, sweetheart, is worry about Noah. And I told Brown, as a father, he's obviously concerned about all these other things and have to worry about his son who's fighting for his life. But I told him, I said, listen, I know how you feel. I'm a dad too. We have 4 children, my wife and I do. And we're going to make this, I'll take care of the money. Don't worry about it. Just worry about your son. And so it's a humbling, but it's something that it makes me feel good. It does. It gives me a cause. It gives me, even though I can't fix Noah, I can help make things a little easier.
Well, Eddie, we're going to try to get the word out there for you, too. I mean, this definitely caught my attention right away. And, again, it's GoFundMe.org, and search for Prayers for Noah. And you can try to help out here, 7-month-old little Noah, who is certainly in need of that help right now. Now, Eddie, you're no stranger to radio. You were a longtime host in Alaska and a Palin defender. Always nice to hear that on the airwaves, which we don't hear a lot of in many places. What do you make of the current climate of radio hosts? Mark Levin stays very consistent, a staunch defender of our Constitution and of Governor Palin. But many others, they remind me of Republicans in Congress, go along to get along. So tell us, Eddie, as a guy that covered the Palins right in Alaska, what are your thoughts on Governor Sarah Palin and the Palin family?
Well, one thing is misunderstood about the Palin family is that they're a very great. They're a very nice family. They're a close family. I know Todd real well. We snow machine together, and Sarah. And of course Sarah's been on my show. I don't know how many times, but people, I think, give them a bad deal. They give them an unfair shots at times, and I think it's not consistent with other people in the limelight, other people. So there is a hypocrisy that goes on with the Palins, and I tell you, Sarah never said this to me, but I knew she would not run for the presidency because she knew that she would be treated differently than anybody else. And it's not that she knew it or predicted it. People already proved to her that she would not get the same treatment. And I think that's pretty unfortunate because if you look at, the Obamas, they have been treated with kid glove. The children have not been attacked. They have not been scrutinized, but Sarah's has. And it is a huge difference between the way Sarah Palin and the Palin family is being treated or has been treated versus other people in politics.
Yeah, and you look at the family, and I mean, you knew this already, but especially now with what you're going through with your little grandson, the Palins have done so much for kids too. I mean, and Governor Palin, of course, not only with their own children, with Trig and whatnot, but whenever there's a cause out there to help children, they're always on the front lines. You know, Bristol always blogs about kid issues when they come up, and helping others, especially kids who are, less fortunate or sick or what have you. You see Mr. Heath and Chuck Jr. I mean, they've dedicated their life to teaching, to helping children. And these are people who care a great deal about children too. And I think, that's such a great positive. And instead you're talking about, Letterman and all these other clowns just talking nonsense and trying to make things a punchline when you have a very giving family.
Oh, it's just like, Charlie Rangel right now. He said some inflammatory, incendiary comments and about calling people crackers. And, if they're, Sarah Palin has never said anything like that. But Charlie Rangel gets a pass.
Right.
He just, you might get Fox News do a story on it or something like that, but you're not going to see the scrutiny, the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, those guys just, all the Sunday talking head shows, you're not going to see them going after Charlie Rangel and all. But my goodness alive, Sarah Palin said something with targeting. Remember that with the congresswoman from Arizona, where she said the word targeting, and they made it look like that she was the one that shot the poor congresswoman.
Yep.
And other people are using words that are more inflammatory than that, but they never get the scrutiny. They never get the blame. And the children, I know Bristol personally. I have a daughter the same age as Bristol. In fact, the daughter that's the same age as Bristol is the mother of Noah, the one who's struggling for his life. And I always I've talked to Bristol on the radio, and I always compare the two. I've got a daughter your age. And it just angers me that people take her on as some sort of villain almost. It just amazes me the way people take them on. I guess in one way, I've been around politics where I understand it, but I surely don't approve of it. And there's quite a hypocrisy that takes place. And that's why Sarah, I'm going to tell you, I didn't ask her about it because some things I just don't ask her because I just don't feel like, hey, if I don't know what she says and then I can't say it if somebody asks. But that's why she didn't run. She just knew that her family would just be drug out, stomped on, and thrown back wet and dry. Well, I don't know about dry, but wet.
Now, Eddie, that said, do you hope that she'll get back into public life, or do you think that what she's doing now, and she's making a heck of a difference now with endorsements and, speaking and, out there, that unfiltered voice of hope for everyone who believes in things like the Constitution and life and liberty and, our rights here in America. Do you hope that she gets back in the mix in some way, or is it just a wait-and-see kind of thing for you?
Well, I think it is wait and see. I hope she does, but I don't think she will. And I think because she doesn't want to be a distraction. She doesn't want to be hurtful. she knows that they will come after her in a way that they come after. We've kind of beat that up on this conversation. How they'll come at. Everybody that knows Sarah Palin, been around politics at all, listen to the news, knows that she's going to be treated much differently. But she's so effective in rallying the troops. And I think sometimes, you maybe if you want to be at the higher office and you want to serve, sometimes you realize that you can do more rallying the troops, bringing them to fundraisers, bringing them to rallies, making appearances for candidates. And so sometimes it's a selfish thing to say, well, I need to be elected, rather than saying, hey, I can use my strength and assets to get other people elected. And that doesn't serve your self-ego as much, but it sure does help the cause. And if we get more conservative people like that's controlling the House of Representatives right now, and Sarah's had a good impact in making that happen, then that is the higher calling to me. It's humbling because I know there's, someone would like to serve, would feel that they could do a good job at that. But, hey, if we can get, the bottom line is we've got to save our country. And whatever way we can do that, I think that's a great, admirable thing for her to do.
Well, Eddie, the one thing we've learned doing this show, if nothing else, is that anybody that actually knows the Palins, any of the Palins, comes out of there with a positive message, and half of these people who say these other things don't know them at all. So that's one thing that, we have found out, and we appreciate your insight, somebody in Alaska and somebody who's covered them for quite a long time. One more time on little Noah, how can people check out what you're doing for him and lend a hand?
Yeah, if anybody can find it in their heart to give $5, $500, it just, sometimes I think people think, oh, if I only give $5, that's not really helpful. I'm telling you, yes, it is, because if a lot of people give $5, that totally adds up. But GoFundMe, it's a website, GoFund, G-O-F-U-N-D, GoFundMe.org, and search there Prayers for Noah, N-O-A-H. And just go in there and click and give what you can. And it doesn't matter how small or how big. We appreciate it, and it will surely help our family and help my daughter especially. And, of course, it'll really help Noah. And there's some great pictures on there of Noah. You'll see him. He's a precious little boy. And he's been in a lot of pain here lately because of the bone marrow samples that were taken. But today, and he started to kind of get back, and he's so happy, man. He is so happy. He doesn't even know what's going on. He's fighting for his life, but it's so cool because he's so happy. He's laughing and things, and so maybe that's a good thing that he doesn't know what a struggle he's in front of.
Eddie Burke, thank you, sir, and God bless you, and God bless little Noah.
Hey, God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Again, it's GoFundMe.org and search Prayers for Noah. This past week, Governor Palin reminded President Obama that we have not forgotten his mocking of the Special Olympics, and she pointed out the president's lies about energy. To see all of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page or follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
We head to the great state of Virginia now, the Commonwealth of Virginia. We bring in Susan Stimson. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Kevin. It's great to be back with you.
Well, great to have you again, and something I know that has been an issue we've both fought for, and that's equal treatment of women running for office or just women in general, and something this past week renewed that fire in you, something concerning Erica Harold, who was a guest here on the Palin Update a few weeks ago. So what have you noticed in the treatment of Harold, Miss America 2003, who's now seeking a congressional seat in Illinois?
I first noticed Miss Harold when I read some headlines about some of the racist rants that the GOP leader there in Illinois had stated about her. So I looked into her background and was surprised to find that she had her law degree from Harvard. She was an accomplished attorney. She had served on many boards that, served the community. She had been Miss America. And then she has now come back into the news again. The Weekly Standard has run an article on Miss America versus Mr. Incumbent, and they're just trying to figure out why in the world she would want to run for Congress. And it just renewed that same issue that I'm seeing. It is a perspective that is missing from the table in American politics, that it's not just Republican, but it is also Democrat, that there is definitely a headwind that women face when they're running for office. And I think that this example of Erica Harold is just a prime example of just this good old boy network really just coalescing around their guy and really trying to push out a strong woman candidate.
You know, Governor Palin obviously talked about her run for governor, breaking through that good old boy network, who kind of, looked at her not only as a woman, but also as the youngest governor elected and someone who had small children, and they use these things against women and never against men. Sarah Palin always talks about cracking that glass ceiling, too. So what will it take here? I mean, you're in a state where there's no congressional representation from any women in the Senate or in the House. Parties talk about all this recruitment, but really, what are we looking at as far as women candidates down the road here?
Well, I'm glad to see the Republican Party talking about wanting to recruit women and support women in their run for office. But when I actually see more women in office, Republican women, then that's when I'll believe that the leaders are supporting Republican women running for office. And I think that they really do need to put their money where their mouth is. And I'm not seeing that. What I do think will matter is having more women who enter into the fray. Sarah Palin certainly did take on the good old boy network, and she actually was quite accomplished as the governor of Alaska. Her life took a different turn, of course, when she was up for vice president, but she was accomplished. She did break through some barriers, and there are other women, obviously, that are doing that, but for this real change to happen, I believe that just like Sarah Palin is doing and other female leaders need to do, you're going to have to build up your own grassroots support, and you're just going to have to build up your own power on your own. You're going to have to go around that good old boy network.
And do you think part of it is that the established elected male candidates just realize that a lot of these women running won't play ball or go along to get along? Because you look at the scandals in Washington, even though there are more elected men, still there are a bunch of women who are in office. All of these big scandals, it's always a man, it seems. So does it almost get down to the point where they say, well, I don't think she's going to play ball on this, whereas, my good buddy so-and-so may very well, do a backroom deal here to, pass legislation for special interest or what have you?
I do think it all comes down to power. And how can those who are in office maintain their power, because they want to hold on to that power tightly, and they're going to go with who they're comfortable. And I think that sometimes women candidates can change the paradigm a little bit, but it's not just Republicans that are having this problem. I mean, you can look at the Democrats. They talk about their quote-unquote war on women that the Republicans are waging, but you have Anthony Weiner and Spitzer and the mayor of San Diego, Filner, who have just horribly treated women, and there is hardly any outcry at all from the Democrats on this. So it goes both ways.
All right, Susan Stimson, interesting points here, and hopefully leaders like yourself and Governor Palin can in the forefront of this here and hopefully endorse some folks and get people out there who will be able to run and get elected and then not be afraid of this good old boy network that obviously still exists.
Kevin, thanks for having me on.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. In for Sarah Steelman, here's Dan Bongino.
Thanks, Kevin. Liberals like to expand the government in the name of holding others accountable, but then they never want to hold the government accountable for breaking their own rules, or even the law. That was from this weekend's Wall Street Journal. Between the IRS, the FEC, EPA, HHS, DOJ, NSA, IPAB, and any other alphabet soup of government bureaucratic agencies, we have a very serious problem. I cannot emphasize to you enough the danger of this growing administrative state. The above list is just a sample of the agencies that have granted themselves unconstitutional powers, which treat you as subjects rather than citizens. Please use the phones and email to demand accountability from your representatives. Elected officials can be unelected, but remember, bureaucrats are lifers. This is Dan Bongino for SaraNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. Just head to SaraNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. Visit SaraNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SaraNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, too, so like SaraNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots is our feature on SaraNet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller and Bader Carmoot. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Dan Bongino, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SaraNet Radio. Thanks to Eddie Burke, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.